3, 2, 1. Yo, what it is, YouTube? It's your boy Nissy coming back with another bullseye of a tutorial today on the channel. I want to show you guys how you can use specifically this EQ right here to really sauce up your songs, really help make that whole song kind of lift and come to life a little bit more using these specific type of EQs. Let's not waste no time. Let's get on the grind and see what gems we can find. Let's go right now.
Take it out on me. Take it out on me, girl. Don't think about it, just take it off and take it out on me.
I know you stressed out, lonely, needing affection, dressed up and feeling left out, feeling rejection. Not my intention, te lo digo, yo lo miro, su destino. El verte conmigo es su castigo. You need intellectual, sensual stimulation. That's sexual, that's spiritual, get at you conversation. Me pone duro esperando tu.
Okay, so you guys got an understanding of what we're working with here today. And if you guys do like the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also check out the Patreon where we drop those super secret exclusive live gems. You like these videos, go check out the Patreon. It's more there. Okay, so today I actually wanted to talk about specifically these EQs right here, these Motown inspired EQs. So the first one is the Soundtoys, the Sie-Q, and I loved how this EQ really sounds a lot. I think that back in the day, one common thing with studios is a lot of the times these studios actually had their own custom gear. You know, nowadays everybody's using the same plugins, and I actually like it that way because it's kind of like the Kentucky Derby. Nowadays, we all got you got the same plugins as Jason Joshua, literally. Like, you got the same plugins as all your favorite producers, and it's like, let the best horse get off the line and run. Let the horses run, and whoever is the best horse is going to win. I like it better like that than how it was back in the day. But back in the day, there was always a situation with these studios where they actually had their own in-house technicians, their own in-house scientists who were actually literally inventing gear custom for the studio. So one of those pieces of gear that was kind of like custom to Motown was the Siemens EQ, the Simon EQ. So yeah, another one of them too. I don't know. I'm not necessarily sure if it's the same exact EQ. I don't think so though. But another one is the Hitsville EQ from Universal Audio. So today, we're gonna go over both of those EQs, and it's actually a very interesting thing when you think about back in the day, Motown. Those people who were inventing these pieces of gear, it was an advantage a little bit for the studio. It was an advantage because I got my own swag, I got my own drip, I got my own technicians at the studio crafting my gear for me. So that gives you a reason to want to go to a specific studio because, hey, they got that sound. Also, things like a reverb chamber. Every single, studio had their own reverb chambers and stuff like that. So people needed ear imagination to be like, let's go to that studio specifically because I can imagine when we go there, they got that one EQ with that one reverb chamber and that one console that's going to get the job done. Even sometimes the consoles themselves were custom made for the studio. So I think that with this picture right here, I'm not necessarily sure if this is the I'm not necessarily sure if the Simon's EQ is here, but I know the Hitsville EQ is right here located, in that picture somewhere over here. But the thing about it too, though, is I know a guy like Michael Brower, who he's known for having mixes that are really exciting, really mid-range forward, moving around, always bragged about, oh man, I love using my Motowns. I love using my Motowns. And he also said that, he felt like the UAD plugin was so close enough, an old guy, a veteran who's been doing it for like 30 something years, I think even more than that, is saying, you know what? Fuck the hardware. The plugins is just that good nowadays. Even somebody like that is saying that. So that just shows you, stop making excuses. You have the tools, you got the hammer, and now all you got to do is bang the nail in to start making those hit records I know y'all all capable of doing. So, let's look at actually first the Sie-Q. I'm gonna make sure I don't do that again. The Sie-Q. Let's make sure that we understand the Sie-Q. Very interesting situation where we have the drive function. This is kind of like the grit, the bite, a little bit of that pink Himalayan salt seasoning, jalapeno dripping sauce that you want to put on the mix. So I like to usually approach it a little bit with the drive. Some songs don't sound good with a little bit extra saturation because they're already pumped up. They already clipping, they already got distortion. So that's something you have to hear for before you even apply saturation to your master fader, because if it's a situation where you had the whole mix, that's the stems, that's different, but you got the 2-track. So let's look at this real quick, how I like to use this in and out. Okay, let's go.
Sexual, that's spiritual, get at you conversation. Me pone duro esperando tu mensaje. Acuéstate para que descanses con un masaje. Escápate conmigo esta noche, girl, use me. Apriétame, no flojes tus paredes, don't lose me. Duérmete y te despierto con mi lengua. Probarte de atrás adelante hasta que vengas.
So essentially what we have, if I was to, EQ a song with this type of plugin, is I would push the drive a little bit because it has a way of just kind of boost that booty. That's what I like to call it. It has a way of really just helping the low end get a little bit of girth, get a little bit of size. I call it boost that booty. Whenever I have like a situation where I'm like, damn, that 808 and that kick ain't hitting hard enough, I need a plugin that's going to boost that booty. That's what I say. Everybody in the studio know I say that. But so essentially, I guess these are shelves. And what it's really doing is just kind of like, I would say almost smiley face EQ curve, but really just getting a little bit of that mid-range bite, also helping the vocal push a little bit forward. So let's listen to how it's kind of doing that with and without.
Want you to come and take it out on me, take it out on me. Tonight we gon' be sex and let out all of your aggression when you take it out on me, take it out on me, girl. Don't think about it, just take it off and take it out on me.
You calling him, no answer, a text with no reply. He ignores you, takes you for granted, I hear your cries. Ya no llores por ese ignorante, es un cobarde, perdido tiempo no puede comprarte. I know you tired of the lies, the excuses. The truth is the love that you giving him, he abuses. Es tu prometido y solamente te pido que no recibas a pedido de ese.
So you just really hear the low end gets a little bit more exciting. The vocal pops out a little bit more, and there's just a little bit more grittiness to the hi-hats and everything like that. So that's the thing about master fader EQ. You want to hear what's happening to the whole situation. You want to take a snap back with your kind of ears on a binocular mode where, like they're like binoculars. They're looking at the whole landscape. You don't want to just pay attention to one thing when you're doing EQ like this. And of course, I had a Puig child, and depending on what type of bus compressor you use, it might be like Pac-Man and it might eat up the low end a little bit. I like the 670. I use it a lot because it doesn't really affect my 808 and my kick too much. But my first priority when I apply bus compression is listening to how is my low end changing, because we know rap music, boom, 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 the kick is usually where the most energy is at and everything like that. And sometimes those analog model plugins will add like saturation, maybe to like a part of the 808 where now you're hearing like a completely different 808. It might change the 808 completely. So let's look at the Hitsville EQ now. So with the Hitsville EQ, I really like the Hitsville EQ because it gives you a little bit more of EQ controls, right? Sub, bass, low, mid, mid-range, all that stuff. It really lets you dial in a sound a little bit more. So, in a situation like this, sometimes what I like to do is I like to shift my low end. Sometimes I like to cut the sub. I don't do this all the time, but sometimes I might like to cut a little bit of the sub, like 50 or 30, just the type of sub that you can't really hear, and shift it up maybe a little bit higher. And sometimes that can actually start to add a little bit of clarity to the kick and the low end, just kind of rolling off what people really can't hear, but then compensating for it maybe on a little bit of a higher register. So now you hear a little bit more knock of the kick, a little bit less of the bottom, maybe, but of the 808. But I feel like 50, 30, 20, that's not something that you can really hear. It's something that's more felt. If anything, people say sometimes, I need these speakers aren't good enough because I can't hear 30 and 20, and you can't really hear those frequencies. Can't really hear them. You can feel them, but you can't really hear them. So let's pay attention. I just kind of shifted the low end upwards. I found the Achu Windex Kleenex frequency. I cut that out a little bit. And of course, I just did a little bit of treble boost around 5K. That's where the vocals at to help the vocal pop a little bit more through the 2-track. So let's listen.
Don't think about it, just take it off and take it out on me.
You calling him, no answer, a text with no reply. He ignores you, takes you for granted, I hear your cries. Ya no llores por ese ignorante, es un cobarde, perdido tiempo no puede comprarte. I know you tired of the lies, the excuses. The truth is the love that you giving him, he abuses. Es tu prometido y solamente te pido que no recibas a pedido de ese caso perdido. He online flexing to get attention, he thirsting. We offline sexing another session with no protection. Ma yo quiero probarte and my intention es yo poder un día robarte.
When your nights get
So of course you can use an EQ like this to really start to shape, you know, how you want the mix to be. Do I apply it towards the end? Yeah, that's where I usually start to apply like the mastering EQ. Maybe if I feel like I need to do a broad move. If I want to do a move on an individual element, I will go to the actual track itself and adjust it. So that's kind of how I like to approach master fader EQ essentially, you know, just broad moves, you know. As a painter, he's kind of painting a picture. You're like an engineer, you paint a picture. You got to do, sometimes you got to do a broad stroke, that big line that kind of establishes where you're going to start putting in the fine details. And sometimes you just got to start from a very small place and build up from there. So that's pretty much the end of the video that I have today. Let me know how you guys enjoyed these plugins. Go ahead and try them out. Go ahead and try out these Motown EQs. If you want to try the Soundtoys one, do that, or the Hitsville one. I hope you guys were able to learn a little bit about my actual approach to master fader EQ. It's something that I don't do a lot, but in tandem with bus processing and a master fader EQ, you can really start to have it just sound like a finished, polished product. So I just want to say thanks a lot for being a great part of my YouTube family. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also check out the Patreon where we drop those super secret gems on that Patreon, live and exclusive. So I just want to say thanks a lot for being a great part of my YouTube family. Appreciate y'all now. Peace.